We are going to just wait for a couple of minutes for everyone to settle in, including myself. I'm also just kind of settling into Facebook Live, and I'm figuring out the panel out here. So while all of you settle down, let me also settle into this room. Yeah, seems like all set, all good to go. Yes, I can see messages. Super. Happy evening to everyone. Thank you very much for dialing in to this session at K Talks. Really glad to be part of this forum. I have been fascinated about my conversation with some of the leadership members at Kalorex Group. And what I've been most fascinated about is their design thinking, to think through new and new ways of getting across to children, bringing the best to children out there. And in one such conversation, when they were trying to understand about my life, what intrigued me a lot was their choice of me coming on live with you and talking about my life. And why my life is basically I've been a student. I've been a teacher while I was a student in the same school. I was a businessman before I went on to do my post-graduation from IIM Lucknow. Then I joined a professional career, worked with large companies which are like 200, 300-year-old companies. Ended up becoming an entrepreneur, started my own company, sold off the company, became a full-time educator. I run a school. I guess most of you would be from Gujarat, hopefully, as in, so I have a school in Vadodara. Also, I turned into technology. While I am not a computer science engineer, I've learned technology and I have got a great team of technologists now working with me. And together we are now transforming the world with our education technology solution. So my life has been like a student, teacher, professional, entrepreneur, a businessman, eventually now an educationist and running an edtech company. And what was fascinating was the willingness to learn out of simple lives like mine. And when I was chatting with your team out there, Calrix team, interesting thing was what was common across these lives. And I told them that what is common is the true knowledge that I've acquired over the years have been static, independent of whether I was a student, whether I was a teacher, entrepreneur, or even as a parent right now. I've got two kids. My daughter is 10 and my son is 6. And even as a parent, I think these lessons have been lifelong for me. Truly grateful for that. So before I deep dive into the topic that we have picked up together, would like to quickly check if everyone is doing well. It's really unprecedented times for all of us as humanity, and the courage with which the whole country, the whole world is taking this head on. It's really to salute. I truly wish the well-being for all of you. Wish that all of you stay safe, keep building your health, keep working towards your knowledge, your prosperity, emotional strength, mental stability, and of course, all prayers for a miracle to happen to get this virus out of this planet as miraculously as it came to us. I wish it leaves us pretty soon. With that tone, I would like to get started. As in, I think one of the fascinating things about what I love doing is conversations. I truly believe that the world is shaped by powerful conversations. And even to make this evening special for all of us together, it'll be lovely to engage into a conversation. I've got settled into Facebook Live now, and I can see the chat window on the left. So please keep pumping in your questions, observations as you listen through this session. Would love to take questions rather than doing a monologue for a long period of time. So here's what, as in, what's true knowledge, right? As in, it's kind of pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, all of us have a way to kind of attribute a meaning to the definition of true knowledge. And I think it's such an evolving definition for all of us. But for me, what's true knowledge is something that is static for all my lifetime's work so far. I'm not that old, as in such a massive life is still ahead of me. I keep telling to my kids that I have 200 years to live. In fact, if none of you have come across this book called Factfulness yet, please pick a copy of that book. And what that book starts with saying is, a person who's going to live for 1,000 years has already taken birth on this planet. Whether it's true, untrue, we are yet to see that, but I'm really celebrating the power of beliefs. That somebody on this planet believes that there is a person who lives right now who's going to live for 1,000 years. And I think we have a massive lifetime of work to do. And if something could stay us through the time is true knowledge. And for me, I categorize true knowledge into three buckets of work. One is life leadership. And I'm going to deep dive into each of these three buckets. I wish I had the whiteboard to just wriggle my thoughts around on a whiteboard. I just love doing that. So first is life leadership. Second is creative spirit. And third is specific deep know-how. And these are the three things that I've hold on very close. Even when I became a first-time parent about 10 years ago, I think I held on to these beliefs saying that these are the three key pillars for defining what knowledge is for me. And life leadership, let's just get straight on with life leadership. What's life leadership to all of us, right? As in, life leadership for me is simply put, taking extreme ownership. Can I take ownership of my life? My life is my responsibility. As a parent, as a teacher, as an entrepreneur, I would like my children, my students, my employees to take ownership of their lives, right? So for me, life leadership, simply put, is taking extreme ownership of your own life. There is no blaming allowed. Simply, it's my life, my responsibility. And within life leadership, to simply put, there are three facets to it. First and foremost is my place in the world. My place in the world, right? What does that stand for? All of us live through life. As in, I remember my grandfather, he was 87 when he left this planet. Till he was 87, he was still not yet in touch with what is it that gives him maximum joy. What does he love the most? I think he was completely intoxicated in making money. He was a businessman, a very, very celebrated businessman, a reputed personality in the city. But I think forever he had this regret that he could never get in touch with his deepest love in life. And I think when I'm saying my place in the world as a first metric, it's about finding where do you belong, right? What have you come here for? So some of us would feel super blessed to be living our dreams. I claim to be one of those. I'm living my dream at this moment. What's my dream? My dream is to bring social impact out there in the world at scale. As a parent, I can take care of my two little ones, but can I take my learnings, my expertise to the world out there? And I love this passion of building scale. So I'm out here to take my research, my work in education to scale, and that's what drives me the most. So my place in the world is to be a social entrepreneur, to make more and more lives empowered. And the North Star for me there is, can I create more leaders who have a noble heart and an able mind? I think the terrific combination of noble heart and able mind is my place in the world. If I can inculcate that through all walks of my life, is what I love doing. And hence, that is what is to me. And I think Khalil Gibran very beautifully put this out. What is work? Work is love made visible. The first time I heard this, that work means love made visible, I think I've never been able to replace work with anything more powerful than that. And I think my place in the world is when you have discovered your work, which is your expression of love to the world. And I invite all of us as teachers, as parents, as educators, as management to try and help ourselves and the ecosystem that we are responsible for to help them find their place in the world. The second facet on life leadership is about challenging yourself. It's about unleashing your potential, right? As in, I think that is truly, truly terrific for me because end of the day, it's not about becoming the best. It's not about becoming the richest. It's about becoming better than what I was yesterday. And how do I become better than how was I yesterday? On all facets. It's my health, my prosperity, my mental strength, my emotional fortitude, or even my awareness about self, my spiritual path. In all dimensions, how am I getting better than my yesterday? is possible only if I am challenging myself on all facets. And that's what is the way to take your life and your responsibility of the life, is by unleashing your potential. So first dimension, can I get in touch with my place in the world? What is it that I am here for? Second, can I unleash that potential in the direction that I have chosen by challenging myself? And the third dimension for life leadership is, simply put, to know what matters to me. For instance, all of us, for some of us, peace, we operate best when we are peaceful. While I have heard innumerable times that some people operate best when they are challenged, when they are under stress, when they are under deadlines. So, what matters is, how do we operate the best? Identifying those rubrics, those opportunities, those value systems which gets the best out of us is super important. For instance, for some of us who believe in being an early riser and sitting in our silence first thing in the morning sets the tone for the day. If that is what matters to me, can I make sure that I do that every single day, right? Simply put, three simple aspects of life leadership for how can you go about taking extreme ownership of your own life, of your taking responsibility for your life. Find your place in the world, which is your work, is your love made visible to the world. Second, unleash your potential by challenging yourself in all facets that matter. And third, keep discovering through self-introspection that what matters to you truly. And those are your value systems. So let's keep aside life leadership at one corner, as in you can imagine a triangle. One triangle is life leadership. The second triangle that I keep saying is the creative spirit. And for me, creative spirit is not about art, it's not about music, it's not about business, it's about everything. And creative spirit is simply defined by this definition, which is my endeavor to create more than I consume. Can I create more than I consume? Is creative spirit. And it has constructive thought process built into it. It has a giving factor built into it, because my whole rubric there, my whole assessment is around how much more am I creating than what I am consuming. Let's imagine as an entrepreneur, right? All entrepreneurs love creating wealth because that's a great way to measure their success. Can wealth be anything beyond measuring your success? No. What drives the entrepreneur is creating employment, solving a problem at scale, and I think that's where an entrepreneur derives the maximum joy. So creation, when it's more than consumption, is truly creative spirit in my mind. It could manifest in the form of an art. As a painter, I can keep creating new forms of my thoughts and feelings for the world to get in touch with their thoughts and feelings. A painter, when he or she paints, says something to the painter, but it says so many different things to people who kind of look at that painting, right? So I think that's the second most important pillar. And within this, there are three dimensions again. And I'm going to draw a 3x3. And if I could manage sharing a slide at the end of it, I would leave a pictorial view of what I have presented this evening to all of you. Within creative spirit, there are three pillars, three dimensions. First is curiosity. I think curiosity is such a massively used and abused word. But to me, curiosity is simply courage. I think curiosity is defined by how courageous am I? Do I feel courageous enough to ask even the most stupid question that I may be holding inside me? And as educators, I think the biggest responsibility we have is, can we just let children be courageous enough to put across their vulnerabilities, their questions, and just let them be curious about everything. And there is a whole dimension around curiosity, but I think a creative spirit gets kindled with a question. Can we let that questioning spirit, that spirit of asking the next big question that the person is holding, the most important part of creative spirit? Unless, I'm sure all scientists discovered something because they were inquiring on some phenomena that they observed around their world. We all keep talking about Newton, right? As in the apple falling was such a great metaphor for curiosity, right? Unless he had observed, unless he had asked that question, he would have never been a Newton, right? So can we have more Newtons in our schools, in our companies, in our workplaces? Absolutely. Provided as leaders, we are willing to let people, let students, let parents ask us questions. Be curious about what's happening. And in the current times, even to my 6-year-old, if I don't explain him that why do you need to touch feet for your elders, as in that's one of the customs in my family, as in whenever we meet somebody elder, we would touch their feet and seek blessings from them. But till I explained my 6-year-old that when you bow down to an elder one, you are showing respect, that please bless me. And I had to explain him that physical phenomena being connected to how you feel. And that's when today he does it with absolute unquestionable commitment to that simple gesture of seeking blessings by bowing down to the elderly people. And I think that's curiosity lived up to fully. Second aspect of creative spirit is what I call the growth or the solutions mindset. What's a growth mindset? Growth mindset is, right now we are all stuck at our homes. We want to be with children all the time. We want to do the magic with them. Children are a source of energy for us, but as educators, we are all stranded. We are connecting with our children through mediums like Zoom and Facebook Live. But that's what growth mindset is. As educators, as parents, as entrepreneurs, we have not stopped. We have found our way to still make our work reach, right? So I think having a growth mindset, having a solution mindset is very true. And what's underlying in that is what I call the sphere of influence. If I think about what's in my sphere of influence, I will find a solution. If I think about what's in my sphere of concern, I will only attract stress. I will only attract an inquisitiveness which I can't solve, right? So for instance, we are all being struck by COVID-19 at this moment. What can we do? Can we take care of our loved ones? Can we take care of ourselves? Can we inspire more people to take care of themselves and follow all the safety precautions? Can we ensure that we encourage more people to find creative ways to still solve their problems? But can I worry about when is the next vaccine coming? When is the next solution coming? No, I can't. I'm not a scientist. I can't take care of that. I would love to follow the news, but beyond that, I just can't do anything about it. So a growth mindset, a solution mindset triggers when you have a curiosity to take care of it, and then you start operating within your sphere of influence to find the solution. And I think constraints, I love constraints. I love the word constraints because it only talks about beginning of an opportunity. Unless there were constraints, unless there were challenges, no one would have thought about the next big opportunity, right? So I think growth mindset, solution mindset is the second biggest pillar of a creative spirit. The third aspect is your ability to experiment, your ability to take risks. So in parlance of business and school management and entrepreneurs, it's simply risk appetite. But in parlance of our classroom learning experiences, it's about experimentation. How much do we allow children to experiment wild and crazy? And one of the things that I love doing, and I'm going to share this idea, when I work with grade 11 and 12 in my school, I would walk into this classroom, give them a problem statement, and they have 6 minutes to understand the problem statement and give me craziest of the ideas. In 6 minutes, I expect each student to come back with minimum 20 ideas, and then we classify all the ideas into wild and crazy and just do it ideas. The wild and crazy ideas are the ones that get celebrated. Why do we do that practice? We do that practice to challenge children to think beyond the obvious and then take them to the next step of actually picking one such wild and crazy idea and taking it to fruition, taking it to execution. And I think that's a terrific way. Even a painter, right? When the painter takes a fresh canvas, he or she is going to make the first stroke, and rest everything gets defined from there on. I'm a musician. When I write my first note, everything takes a direction from there. But if I keep thinking about it, that what is the first perfect move, I'm not going to move ever. So I think with a mind which is curious enough, with a mindset which is growth and solution mindset, and with the courage to take the risk, to take experiment as your tool, is the beginning of a creative spirit. Synthesizing it quickly, creative spirit is not creativity. Creative spirit is creating more than consuming, hinges on three pillars: curiosity, growth mindset, and risk taking appetite. So far, in True Knowledge, I've covered these two aspects of life leadership, creative spirit, but these two actually are sitting on a very, very important aspect, which is specific, deep know how. I really want to become the best teacher for mathematics. But how can I do that? Unless I invest in learning math myself, unless I start doing the first counting sum myself, I can't be a math teacher. Unless I actually walk into a class and start teaching children, I can't discover the math teacher in me. So I think the last piece of us discovering true knowledge is about specific deep know-how. And when I say specific deep know-how, I think all of us know that. Some of us are great chemistry teachers, some of us are great administrators, some of us may be phenomenal business leaders, some of us are terrific communicators, but all of us have something which is one aspect which I can call my core. What's my core, right? Can I identify my core? Is it communication? And we all as teachers and educators have come across the theory of multiple intelligences, right? And then everyone has a very different way of learning. Everyone has a very different way of thriving, of really fulfilling their dreams. And I think it's about discovering that core expertise for you. Let me also share this, that while core expertise is important, what is important right now in deep know-how is acquiring more and more core expertise. About 10 years ago, maybe being a very good communicator and a very good teacher on an online class would have never been envisaged in this world, as in we would have never even got our teachers trained to teach on an online platform. But today, that's such a necessary condition. Just about 10 years ago, maybe none of us would have learned typing at the speed at which we type right now. And imagine today, we don't type fully at all. We have started communicating in short forms and emojis and all of that, right? So I think this whole piece about core expertise need to be understood very clearly. Even if you are a 60-year-old or a 6-year-old, you have to keep acquiring new and new core expertise, which is most relevant for the role that you are playing at that point in life. And what are the three dimensions of core expertise? First and foremost is going deep in an expertise, right? Finding a way, a path to expertise. Like for instance, when I first time became an entrepreneur in 2008, I had to really understand how do you go about recruiting the right team? Because for me, culture is everything. If I can build the right culture in my company, in my school, in my institutions, I would be able to get the best outcome. And I think as a leader, my biggest responsibility is to create the right culture. As a teacher, our biggest responsibility is to create the right learning environment. It's not about actually kind of disseminating information. It's not about just explaining concepts. It's about creating the right culture in the classroom. And I think I really went through a massive learning curve when I became an entrepreneur first time about 11, 12 years ago, is learning how to build cultures. My training in education has been in finance. Coming from a finance background where everything is about numbers, for you to understand the nuances of culture was a terrific learning journey. And how did I go about doing that? I think the best way for me to do that was to read about some of the best places to work for in this world. I read about the stories of some of the best places were built by certain practices. I went for experiences to other organizations. I did my research in learning organizational behavior. So you had to really deep dive into it. And one of my biggest concern right now, if all of you were to ask me, what is the biggest risk that we as educators are going through right now? I think social media. Social media is the biggest risk for us. While it's such a terrific tool for us to disseminate the right practices, but it has completely hijacked what I call deep know-how building. All of us have got used to that 1-minute video that 20-second reading, that 160 character tweet, right? We just live in short forms right now. And I just can't imagine how can you get the depth of a learning without going into a stack of books that is lying right across here, right? As in, unless you are kind of processing these books, unless you are kind of conducting a deep research, unless you are engaging into deep conversations with people who are experts in it, how do you acquire it? And I think all of you would remember how Maggie, one of my favorite snack, even till date, I'm a health freak, but I love Maggie. Maggie was taken off the shelf just out of a social media hijack. Maybe parts of it could be true, but was Maggie harmful to be taken out of the shelves? I think the emotional trauma children and even children like me at this age went through was far greater than what social media did to Maggie as a company, Nestle as a company. And I think that's the biggest risk. We have lost our ability to deep dive into acquiring a specific skill set, acquiring a knowledge that makes sense for us. And as educators, I'm assuming most of you who are here in this room right now are educators or parents and maybe even children. If we can inculcate this deep desire for learning deep enough for one thing that matters to you, one thing, begin with that one thing. If if health matters to you, can you do enough research before you make a choice on what should be your right diet plan, your exercise plan, instead of going by a social media posting that what is the right diet? Can you read enough about it? So can I invite one commitment from this group today, that for that one thing that matters to you the most, you are going to go deep into that subject before implementing any practices in your life. So that's what I mean by deep expertise. That's the first and foremost pillar. The second aspect of that is tools. This is a tool. Right now, Facebook Live is a tool. This pen is a tool. This mobile is a tool. This cup is a tool. I think all of these are tools that we have surrounded ourselves with. I don't know how much all of us are aware, and I wish I could have asked you some questions to know my audience who's there right now. When was printing press invented? Right, 1452. Project Gutenberg, right? As in, we have all heard about Project Gutenberg. Before year 1452, printing press wasn't there. Reading was a luxury. People who got access to literature was a luxury, right? After 1452 is when reading revolution came to this world. And knowledge, which is such a potent tool through books, became a tool accessible to the whole planet. And today, books are getting published at the speed of light, as in each of us can publish our books. And I think we should not hold back. If any of you have that one idea to write about, just go and write. Trust me, there are at least 5 people waiting for your book. And if you could write for those 5 people, you have created value in the world out there. It's not necessary for all of us to become the best sellers. But can I create that tool for 5 people? Maybe it will get to 50. Maybe it will get to 50 million people. But I think tools are about that. And I want to spend another 2 minutes on tools. Reading, writing, listening, speaking. These are tools. These are tools that parts of it is what we had this inherently in us, right? I'm able to use the dance of my tongue and the movement of air to communicate something which is making sense to you. Now this technology of the tongue and the air existed, but some human spirit discovered that tool called language and made it possible for the world to connect and communicate, right? Our ability to read, when printing press came, it's a tool. Our ability to write, it's a tool. Apps, we use so many apps right now. Those are tools. Can I think of all the necessary tools that can make my life well? And I'm going to show you one tool right away, right? As in, this is an app. I don't know how you can see my screen, but this is an app called Streaks. Streaks is, simply put, gamification of putting my behavior into discipline, right? For instance, if I like to sit in silence every single day, I love to track whether I'm sitting in silence every single day or not. Can I use a tool to discipline myself? Yes, I can. Right? So tools are dime a dozen available. I think it's about unleashing your potential at an accelerated pace by using the right tool. There is no point holding standpoints that हमारे ज़माने में तो ऐसा होता था, आपके ज़माने में ऐसा होता है. It's okay. We grew up in a different time. I went to a school where there were 3 computers shared across 2,000 children in the school. But today, every child is on an internet connected device, at least in the ecosystem that we are talking about, be it a smartphone. There are 550 million smartphone users in the country, right? More than half the population is on smartphone. So we have to change our tools with changing times. So how do you get to a deep specific know-how? First, deep research, deep dive. It's not on social media, it's through deep dive. Second, by acquiring new tools that are relevant for all of you, in depending on what is it that you are leading, doing at this moment. And the third aspect, and the last aspect is, I think going to a picnic is so much more fun than actually being in the picnic, right? The process is so much more fun than actually the final product. This conversation is so much more fun for me than actually just the outcome that I will make as notes out of it, right? So I truly believe that learning as a process is so much more fun than the knowledge that you acquire at the end of the process. So can we take our children, can we take ourselves through that experience of learning rather than having that urgency to acquire that next big knowledge? A lot of times what happens is, and I'm again taking the example of reading, as in I just love talking about reading all the time, is we go to a bookshop, we end up liking so many book covers because it's telling us something that is appealing to us at that moment, and we will get 6, 8, 10 books because we can afford them, and then just the urgency to read all of those books and post on social media that I have finished 8 books in last 8 weeks of lockdown is not enjoyable. You're creating stress for yourself. Versus picking one book, falling in love with it, maybe reading it twice, or maybe picking another book and you didn't like the book after 2 pages. Keep it away. It's not necessary to finish that book. You like the cover and that was good enough for you, right? Enjoy the cover 10 times more. Doesn't mean that you need to really consume the content in the book. So I think that whole learning experience, and we keep talking as educators, how do you make a learning experience joyful for a child? I think if you put yourself in the shoes of the child and imagine that learning experience, that is this child actually enjoying? Is this child actually understanding? Why isn't this child participating, responding back? Imagine my situation right now. I'm talking to a camera, looking at myself and not at my audience, and believing that everything is reaching you. And I actually don't know if this is what you came here for. Such a difficult job, right? But hopefully, as in I'm sure some of you will pick one or the other message from this session. I have spoken for 34 minutes. I can keep going, but I will conclude with one example on power of conversations. I was in a class of grade 12 students, and these grade 12 students are just about preparing for their life, and suddenly there's a lockdown and their dreams are shattered, they are in challenge, and one of the students stepped up and asked me a question in a session, and he said, "Sir, what is the relationship between dreams, beliefs, and potential?" A grade 12 child from a small town called Kalol in Gujarat, Vadodara district, asked this question. "Sir, what is the relationship between dreams, beliefs, and potential?" I was completely floored. I said, if this child could think of that question, he will find the answer. I simply said, if you can hold on to your dreams, believe in yourself, and keep unleashing your potential by becoming better the next day, I think you have established the connection. Can we get in touch with our dreams, which is life leadership? Can we believe in ourselves that we could create more than what we could consume in this lifetime? And can we absolutely unleash our potential by going deeper and deeper in building a core expertise. And I think that's what summarizes for me as true knowledge. As a parent, as a teacher, as an entrepreneur, and currently my company, we have almost about 250 people across various functions. We operate across the world now. There are lakhs of children who are benefiting from the work that we do. But I think what really inspires us even today is that question that I just shared. When the child steps up and asks you that question, you realize that your work is working. And that gives us the most joy. I love talking to all of you and would look forward to listening to your questions. And while you type your questions, if you have any your comments, I can see some comments out here which make me feel that yes, some of it is reaching you for sure. So if there are any questions, I will meanwhile pull up my slide so that you can actually see and synthesize what I've said so far. I'm trying to figure out how to share screen. Really bad at this. I've never used Facebook Live. Is there any question that I'm getting? I can see comments. As in, I think it's a nice, lovely evening out here in Gurgaon. I live in Gurgaon, and the evening is really beautiful, and I'm sure it's equally beautiful at your end. So, if we feel complete, I can actually just show you my notebook. If I'm not able to show my screen, I did take my and I'll post it to on the Kalorex group website. Can you see this? So this is the first dimension, life leadership, which in my mind is extreme ownership. 3 dimensions, find my place in the world. Second, unleash potential by challenging yourself. And third, through introspection, keep getting better in knowing yourself, in knowing what matters to me. The second dimension, oh, this looks fine. Creative spirit is where I am creating more than I am consuming. 3 dimensions, inculcate curiosity, acquire a growth and a solutions mindset, keep experimenting and taking risks. And the third dimension, such a very, very old style way of showing you slides. Sorry about that. The third dimension, specific deep know-how. What is my core? Keep adding more and more to your core. There is no stopping to learning. Keep building the expertise, your leverage factor, acquiring more and more tools to accelerate your learning, and finally focus on the learning journey and not the urgency to acquire that next knowledge. I hope the slides worked for you. I'm going to post a picture of these slides on this Facebook live stream for you to benefit out of this. And yes, I would certainly email it to the Kalorex team for them to take it over to the student community. Here's one question. Many students are crushed by education rather than encouraged by it. Sometimes because their teachers seek to impress students with their own knowledge. How can you begin to change this? There are 2 parts that I'm reading in this question, right? One, what is the benchmark that we are setting for our children, right? As in, what is it that they are driven for, right? And I read in this question that these children are being kind of crushed by the burden of knowledge that we are expecting children to acquire. And this happens because teachers who have acquired that knowledge are trying to really impress upon students that they know a lot more than children. I think let's understand the human behavior part of here is. It's absolutely fine if teachers are expressing their deep know-how in a classroom to these children to make them understand what is it that they know. That's not the problem. I think the problem is in the assessment system. If you are the school leader, whoever is asking this question, Rosalind ma'am, if you are a school leader, if you are somebody who can influence the system, can you change the metrics of measurement? And there are 2 ways we have done this in our own school. One, what we do in our own school is more than the evaluation done by the leaders, the coordinators or the school principal, we go by the peer evaluation. We would get every teacher being evaluated by the peers, which matters a lot more. We would also be getting teachers get a peer rating through the students and the parent fraternity. I think that speaks a lot. When it comes to children, I think the whole country has been suffering from this challenge of being evaluated for what is written in the examination. I think if we can drop that and start encouraging students and give them points for asking questions, for doing experiments, for celebrating when they break rules once in a while, as in, right? I love that. As in, breaking rules is somebody who's trying to find a solution, right? We try to stay in touch with the fact that the child has broken a rule, but can we understand what made the child to break the rule, and can we help the child to fix that? If the child has broken the rule for some self gratification, can we fix that rather than fixing the growth mindset of the child? And I think it's about setting that system right. uh, i I guess that reaches you. Super. I think this makes me feel complete, and I always love to be efficient on time, not just for me. I'm equally responsible for your time. And if we can save 18 minutes this evening, it's a great blessing to the world out there. Spend that 18 minutes with your loved ones, with something that you love the most, and make sure that your love is made visible to the world more and more, because that's true work. Thank you once again, and thank you once again to the Kalorex group for designing such wonderful sessions, for making us reach more and more hearts. And I hope some of these words will make a difference to few hearts. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon again when I get the next opportunity. Bye.